Hey, welcome back to the Things We Know. I'm Carrie Morin.
And I'm Lisa Callahan. And today's episode is, well, I guess it was inevitable. So I'm going to tell you a little backstory about this. So when we decided to do the Things We Know, and we initially said, and kind of still are saying, that this is for women of a certain age, I was very clear from the get-go. I did not want this to be a menopause pod. I did not want to talk about the change all the time. That was not the intention of this. And yet here we are. Would you like to share more?
I want to hear from you, Lisa. What do you want to say about this series we are kicking off?
Well, I'm excited about this series. So this is our second sort of three-parter. Today, Kari and I are going to talk about our experience with the change, menopause, whatever you want to call it. And then next week we have brought back Amy Pickard for her take, which she calls cougar puberty.
It's excellent.
Oh my God, it's really good. She has been through it. I don't think I have ever known anyone to go through menopause the way she has. So it's a bit of a horror story, but also if you watch the Good to Go pod, you know, she's funny as hell. So there's also a lot of humor in it. And then for you, we brought on your friend.
Oh yeah. Well, we have, actually there was a couple people we were hoping for, and I'm so glad that we got one of them, which was, and we'll bring back the others when they're ready, but Dr. Krista Bross, who is a naturopath and who specializes in a lot of things actually, but really hormonal effects on the body at different stages of our lives and the neural pathways and all the lifestyle changes that help or enhance or hurt that experience. So, and that's a two-parter. So
I want to correct myself. I said this was a three-parter, but it's actually a four-parter, because when we got in with Dr. Ross, it was, I could tell from the get-go. Kari does this. I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes here. Kari writes our scripts every week. She does such a brilliant job. And when she sent me the script for Dr. Ross, I was like, wow, there's a lot in here. And I feel like I didn't want it to go on 2 hours and have people drop off at the end. So we actually split it into 2 different episodes, and they're both phenomenal because she is just brilliant. And we talk about hormones, but we also talk about sex. So that will be parts. See how I didn't even tell you about all the other stuff we talk about, because I'm pulling you in with the sex, baby.
And that other amazing S word that we all love so much, which is sleep. That's it. That's all we're going to tell you.
Yeah.
And you know, I agree, right? I mean, Lisa was a big no. And when you're telling everybody, this is not a menopause podcast, who do you think she was telling that to? What do you mean? Not that I was like, we want to be a menopause podcast. That wasn't it. It was that we were sharing a lot of feedback we were already getting. And that's one of the first conversations that sparked it, as a lot of you know, if you've been listening to our episodes, you know, was talking to Carrie Peters about what's happening with my body, what's happening with my face. And we're like, and what's funny about that is I said that when I was like, I'm conquering it. I'm doing well with it. I'm on the other side. And I had no idea that a month or 2 later, I was going to hit the highs and lows of things I didn't even see coming. So I am in that place, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I mean, on a big level, one of the reasons I agree with Lisa, yeah, you're right. I mean, I kept kind of noodling, going, we're going to have to get to some of it. This is the experience that so many, we're all having. It's not like, you know, we talk about a lot how there's major billions of defense spending on erectile dysfunction, which doesn't even affect all men. It's a small percentage of men, but the highest percentage, which is almost in total of women, will go through some form of menopause and the change. I don't think we can say it without saying it like that, which is funny, but, and I think that's why we wanted to resist it, because Lisa and I really are here because this time of life is so much more than that bullshit. It's just so much more, but it's what people think. Right. And I think it's also supremely unfair I have, had my pouty moments, and I probably will again. Like, it's extremely unfair that when we're getting into these crone years, these juicy parts of our lives and living in our wisdom and our experience, where we get to finally have time for ourselves and each other, we have to go through this crappy stuff with our body feeling like it's leaving the building sometimes, or that it's just like we don't even recognize this vehicle we're in. Regardless of how well or how not well we've treated it, we all have that some version of that coming. And that's not just aging. It's like, it's an especially bitter part, not bitter, but like it does feel like a little unfair.
Intense. Yeah, it is unfair. I mean, I joked, I don't think I said this on the pod with Dr. Ross, but I joked that I was going to, that menopause is one of the few times where I think God is a man.
Yes, I loved when you said that. Like, this sucks. This is bad and bad. Like, we should be coming into just, like the bonbons.
Like, just like, and so there, to some extent, I mean, that is true for us, right? And so it does come to the point of, like anything, even Amy Pickard going through it as horribly as she does. She has so many symptoms. Mm-hmm. And she still shows the light at the end of the tunnel, for sure in next week's episode. And then, you and I have experienced it different. I would say for the most part, I don't have a lot of symptoms. And so we often had some teasing between the two of us of just, you'd be like, just you wait. And I might, who knows?
I don't feel that way anymore. I do feel kind of like your version is not the roller coaster. You might be on the ride where you get wet. Splashed. You get splashed like unexpectedly, but like, I don't think you're on the constant up and downs and swirls and all that stuff.
No, I don't think I am. I mean, and we'll go deeper in this, I guess, in a minute, but like, I just feel like I have had a really light version of it. I have been there are things that are happening to my body, specifically aches and pains, that I didn't realize could be menopause. And Amy really taught me that. So that's why I think I'm in it a little bit more than I thought I was, but only because there's, like, my hips hurt, and there is such a thing as a menopause hip, but when I think back to my mom, I don't remember her going through it intensely. And I did ask my gyno if it is somewhat genetic, and she said, yes, and I don't have my mom to ask, unfortunately, either, so I mean, I can't even go back to her and be like, so tell me about menopause. 'Cause when she died 3 years ago, I wasn't even thinking about it,
Right. Well, that's true, right? Like, I think one of the reasons ultimately we both agreed that we want to do this, because we love you, our listeners, and so many of you have said that would be great if you want to cover some of it, give us some hope, give us some laughs, let us know we're not alone. But like, it's also because I don't want, it's kind of like what we said about diet culture and body stuff. Like, I don't want to spend my years anymore thinking about that stuff. Like, I don't want to be in aging thinking about aging. I don't want to be in menopause thinking about it. So I want to know enough so I can get to the good stuff, right? Like, it's like, I want to understand this, what's hard about this, and make choices based on like what I think is possible for me, and take some risks and know that I might feel shitty because of it. But I want to be able to get to the good stuff by understanding enough of like what I'm dealing with and what to expect.
Well, doesn't you saying that makes me think of the idea that I say a lot, which is knowledge is power, right? When you're flying blind through these symptoms, which is kind of where, and I don't want to spoil anything from Amy or Krista, because again, their 3 episodes are so fucking good. But when, Amy was flying blind through a lot of it, and worried that she was having serious health issues, only to find out, after going through one doctor who was like, yeah, you might have heart disease. No, it was something that is related to menopause. So I think
it's ridiculous. This is where women get gaslit all the time.
Oh my God. Amy is, again, next week's pod, I don't want to blow it. But I think the thing in general is there is so much good stuff. And if you know what you could go through from a symptom perspective, then you're not freaking the fuck out if your heart's beating really fast. You know, if you know what the symptoms are, then you can also enjoy the good parts. Oh, I don't even know what you're thinking.
It was just what you said reminded me. You haven't met her, but you enjoy her wine. My friend Cheryl,
Yes.
she made a joke about, instead of like what to expect when you're expecting, she said there should be a book called What to Expect When You're Expiring, which I don't think is what she like. That's what she came up with. Like, we're not expiring. We are aging like fine wine. What to expect. But I think that you're right. That was helpful for those of us who went down that road. It was helpful to know what to expect, even though it wasn't the same for everyone. Like to know that, okay, maybe I should find out if this is normal.
Yeah. And then you can, I think you're now referencing childbirth.
I am, but I'm saying how it applies here.
Yeah, no, I agree. Cause I actually went so far with childbirth to hire a doula when I was pregnant with Liam, because I didn't know, I wanted somebody literally standing next to me going, yes, you're in labor. Yes, we're going to go to the hospital. Like I didn't want, and of course you've got a OBGYN for a husband.
I still had a doula. I have the same doula for all three. Yeah, we wanted a doula with us because we wanted Brendan to experience it and not feel like he had
that's
to work.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't have one with Charlotte because I figured I got this, but with Liam, I just and I was so glad I did. But wouldn't it be nice if there was a menopause doula? Maybe over the next 3 episodes after this one, you'll feel like you have one between Amy. I mean, Amy considers herself sort of what is she, a death condom? But also I think of her, there are death doulas. She's not one, and then the information we get from Dr. Ross. I mean, between these next 3, I feel like we're setting you all, the listeners, up with some really good information. And Dr. Ross in particular has some resources, which is cool.
Ooh. You know what I love about the image of that? Because the other thing doulas do is have everybody, like they harmonize everybody involved, right? So like, wouldn't that be cool to have, you're going through it and having like a moment, like looking at everyone, it's okay. Mom's just having a flash. She's not crazy. Just give her some space.
She's not melting.
Go open a window, dear. Go be useful. Like, why don't you guys all leave? Why don't you guys all leave right now?
Yeah, right.
Could you all stop chewing and
stop chewing? I'm going to invite you all to shut the fuck up and walk out of the room slowly.
This woman deserves some space.
Yeah.
That would be so good. Oh my gosh. We might be on.
So what do you want women to know most?
That's a great question, because like the one thing I learned early on from Krista, who is going to be here, and is way before I was thinking about menopause. So you think you're learning and you're listening, but you're really not. And then when it comes to, you're like, I wish I studied. Is something she said all the time was like, just like, you're going to go there, you're going to get there. So decide if you want to take the hard way or the easy way, or I'm not sure you can really dictate that. But I think like something that she will say, that you'll all hear her say, that she always says is, if you do nothing about it, you have a much higher chance of it being rough. And what she means by that is like, what are the ways you really want to focus on taking care of yourself? Like, so I think the things to know are, we are just naturally losing muscle. So whatever you can be doing to build muscle, it doesn't mean you have to go to CrossFit and you have to lift weights every day. But if you're doing something to build strength, your body will thank you when you get to these stages. I am so grateful for the little bit I've done. I used to work out a ton in the last few years, as I've shared here, is definitely made me prioritize sleep over a ton of exercise with everything we've been through with Griffin. But I do enough that I can really tell it makes a difference in just the way my body responds to things, like to have some strength, to have some muscle. I can tell.
Weights are good for bone density as
and
well.
Body weight stuff too. Yeah.
And we lose that as we get older.
Right. So like I don't know how anyone listening or any of us are ever gonna kind of bypass the whole muscle and bone loss thing. So that's definitely something I think, if you want to prioritize something now, and I'm sure, knowing that we have health coaching backgrounds, you think we're going to tell you what to eat. We are not. I think the most important thing that like everyone should know is get to know yourself and find a way to fit those two things in, like prioritizing thinking about your bone density and your muscle, like building muscle at the very least. I really feel like that's a helper. And I'm like really understanding how to prioritize rest.
Yeah.
I think those are the
I
things
love
like
what
I feel
Kristen
like,
does a lot on that.
Yeah. And also I think it's going to find you anyway. If you don't rest will find you.
That's true.
Pull you down and say, come on, bitch.
I thought you meant menopause will find you.
No, well, that's for sure. But I think rest, like if you don't prioritize rest is going to find you in ways that are going to feel demoralizing and depleting. Right. Like you're going to be sort of forced into it in ways that you're just like, why am I tired? Or why, like I think there's ways that you can think you don't need it that will end up catching up to you and biting you in the ass.
Agreed. Yes. And I think, and then it is a little bit of go with the flow, right? Resistance to anything is futile. And so, Amy has done things, and again, I think she mentions this, but Amy has things like a fan she wears around her neck that blows on her. She also, unfortunately, lives in this amazing rent-controlled apartment in LA with no air. So it's lovely here right now. Yeah. It's brutal. So, I mean, it's not about, you can get angry about all this, and you can certainly get angry about the lack of research for women around all of this. I think trying to make sure that you have a doctor who gets it, because again, Amy talks about this. She went to her first doctor, happened to be a man. I know not all women doctors are super up to date on menopause either, which in theory is surprising, but whatever. And he confirmed her worst fears, only for her to find a second opinion with another doctor who was like, no, this is all menopause symptoms. It can happen earlier than you think. That Amy got started much earlier. I think, but going with the flow, when something happens, make sure you get an answer from a doctor, if that's the route you go, that feels in alignment and feels true. Advocate for yourself if it doesn't. Don't allow yourself to be gaslit just because they have a DR in front of their name or an MD behind it. What do you think?
I think that's really important. It's funny that I went straight to the it's because literally I'm waking up sometimes going, oh, I should have stretched, or I should have not skipped that exercise. But I think what you're saying is most important is do not accept anything. Don't accept anything from your body or from what other people are saying until you let yourself know, like, if this isn't how I want to feel, there's got to be answers for me, and there's got to be ways to feel better. Advocate for yourself. Nobody knows your body better than you. And I think what I was trying to say with that too is, like, really get to know, when I said get to know yourself, like, there are times, I think, where you're getting precursors to it. And some people, I know people who went through menopause in their late 30s. So it's different for everybody. But there are times when your body's giving you like little hints and clues that like change is happening. And that's not something to be necessarily grieved. I do think that sometimes we hold on to it and we get so bummed, like, oh, I can't eat that anymore. I used to be able to eat that. I used to be able to party, and then, oh, shoot. You know what? There's a lot of highs and lows and good things that come with that as well. Getting to know yourself and knowing what makes you feel good is all that's important. If everyone else is on the sober train and it's no big deal for you to have 1 or 2 drinks a night, don't feel like you have to get on the sober train. If
I don't even want to know where that sober train is
or where it's headed. If everybody else is giving up sugar and you don't really have an issue with it, that's not like, you don't have to subscribe to what everyone else is doing, but like really pay attention to what your body's telling you. And if it's possible that you could, like, play with, I'm going to give up coffee for 2 weeks and see how I feel. And maybe that isn't it. Maybe I'll go back to it, or maybe I'll find that I sleep better and I'm less stressed. Then that was a good thing to try, right? One's telling you, experiment with what it is and be open to the fact that your body's inviting you to find new ways to feel good, and know that some of this stuff sucks and some of it may not happen to you. And some of the stuff that sucks is temporary. So
Mhm.
I think that's what I want all women to know, is that like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. We all got some version of this. And there's a lot more to enjoy and laugh about when you kind of get in that place of like, here's what works for me.
100%. I think really understanding your body and not it's not compare and despair, because obviously nobody wants it to be different or worse. Like I don't look at Amy and go, oh, I wish I had those many menopause symptoms, but it's still really realizing that what works for your friend might not work for you. And that's
Mhm.
okay. We are all unique individuals. And one of the very first things we learned as a health coach is there is as many quote unquote diets in the world as there are humans. We all react to everything completely different. And there is ways to I guess medicine, hormones. Again, Dr. Ross goes into this in such a really great way. And I thought spoke to it in a way that anybody could understand what hormone therapy looks like. So you don't have to suffer if you're willing to try hormones. There are ways to
Mhm.
get through this in an easier way. And again, her episode, I think, is going to be one that I know I personally can't wait to re-listen to, because I was in the moment of doing the pod. But there are remedies out there, and if you're willing to try, and hormones have gotten bad raps in the past, especially as we were younger. And
Mhm.
so, do some research and find out if that is something that could work for you.
Another thing that's true too is I can't wait for like men to hear it too. Like I think my husband can learn a lot listening to her, and I think it's helpful the way she touches on, how like the hormonal changes in men,
Yeah,
and
she talked
also
about, I
like
love that.
that we have teenage boys, and like how they're so similar to menopausal women. And well, you don't have a teenage boy anymore, but I still have some. And
Well,
yeah,
but you were, the way you talked about, I think it was Miles. It was like, I don't know why I'm crying. Liam and I had that exact same conversation. He was probably a little bit younger than, because you said Miles. No,
at the time he was like 14. So
okay,
yeah.
so that would have been about the time for Liam. And I remember
Mhm.
him coming out and being like, I don't know why I'm crying. And I was like, because you're hormonal.
Yep.
I was like, but that was such a
Hold my
surprise.
beer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hold my wine. You grew up with a brother, so maybe you were already aware of it. I was not. That shocked me when Liam, I had no comprehension that boys went through it the way girls did.
I
So that
don't
was a
think
surprise to me.
I don't know. I had one brother, and he was wonderfully sensitive in all the ways. And so I don't remember him being shocked by that part of himself.
Mm,
He was a very big, good mix of masculine and feminine in a lot of ways. I don't think we had that language back then in the 80s at
sure,
all. We weren't
that's
like,
true.
you got a good, handle
You're
on your feminine
metrosexual.
side. Nothing like that. He was a really sensitive soul, and he allowed himself to get emotional for sure.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on the emotional part, and I do, if I recall, and I have to listen to it again. I think Krista touches on this part a little bit, but I think the other thing, there's something we learned in our coaching training, a paradigm that's so true: that which we resist persists,
Yep.
right? So how it applies, what do I want to say? Like when we're resisting what's happening and we're like, fuck it, I'm just going to eat and drink whatever I want and screw this. And then we're like suffering because of it, because we're resisting it. We're not kind of finding the flow with it and trying to mitigate it. I don't think doing something about it is resisting it. I think being pissed about it and denying it is resisting it. And that's where it could get worse. Right. And
Yes.
I think touching on the emotional piece is when it's like when I say get to know yourself, like I just was watching some snippet. I'm pretty sure it was Brene Brown. Maybe I was listening to it because I can't remember if it was her or not. But talking about how you get to this part of midlife, and if you haven't done any work on yourself, whether physically or emotionally, or like if you haven't done any sort of how do I grow myself kind of stuff, that's when the universe comes down, puts its hand on your shoulders and shakes your shit up, right? Like that's
Yeah.
when it's like, all right, this armor you've put on your whole life because of trauma or loss or things you didn't know any better about. Now you got to deal with it. And I do think that it is possible to have a harder time with these times if you're not allowing yourself to just like feel whatever's coming through you, right? Like grieve it, be pissed
Yeah.
about it. And while you're doing it, I think that helps talking to other people. Yeah. Is that making sense? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know. I agree. I think, yeah, getting help, taking hormones isn't resisting. It's putting your body back in. It's using what your body needs to help itself. Unfortunately, we are biologically still cave women. And so the body hasn't caught up to the fact biologically that we live now to be almost 90. In caveman times, we maybe didn't even hit menopause because
hormones didn't even have to kick in.
Yeah.
So I feel like what you're saying is like, instead of having a wild bareback ride, just saddle it up and it'll go a little bit smoother.
I mean, whatever gets you through the night. maybe that's the song. We have a song, but maybe that song from
That's hilarious.
is a good one. Now, what were you most surprised about?
What was I most surprised about? I mean, there's like I think like in myself, or just what I was learning about it in general.
Yeah, I mean, no, not what we've learned, but what for yourself, like what did you think it was going to be like, and what do you find yourself going, oh, I never thought I'd say that, or I never thought I'd feel this, or
I never thought like I would be thinking and talking about my digestion so much. That's TMI, but like, luckily I am married to a medical person, so he's like all here for it. But yeah, the way our systems interact with each other, with our nervous system, with our digestive system, like hormones, they cross over all those barriers. So I never thought I'd be like, I was up to pee twice, or stuff like that cracks me up. That I used to roll my eyes and laugh at that when I would hear older people doing that, and I'm totally like, yay. Yep. I didn't, like just how much I think about sleep, and how I like am so turned on by getting a lot of sleep. That's kind of funny to me, because I've always been somebody who didn't need a lot of sleep. I was up late, I was up early. I'll think I'm going to be tired, and then I'll go on a trip and I'll get all this energy, like crazy energy. Like someone gave me a Red Bull, which I don't drink, but so I think the part that surprises me is like how much of that stuff I'm totally here for now. Like I want to talk about it. I want to think about it.
Well, because you're not resisting it. If you resist it, it's not going to go. It doesn't magically go away because you decide not to think about it.
Yeah. And I think that am I surprised about like the loss of sharp vision? No, I am bummed about it. What I think surprises me, because I am pretty active, is the stiffness, like the joint stiffness and stuff. That stuff bums me out. Like I don't experience, like I haven't experienced dryness anywhere yet, luckily, but I feel like my joints are dry or something, because they feel just a little stiff in the morning. And so that's kind of something I'm really focused on right now, is how to get those joints feeling juicier again, and really looking with and playing with the idea of like, where am I not seeing that I'm causing some inflammation there that I can relieve, so I think I'm approaching it kind of like something to solve,
like an investigator.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I mean, I went into this thinking the symptoms were what we've always heard, right? Hot flashes, weight gain, sleep, I've had all of that very minimally. One of the things that surprised me is, and I seem to go through ebbs and flows, knock wood, I'm not having it right now, but there are weeks where I have a hot flash at exactly 8:30 every night.
That's wild.
It's so weird. And somebody else posted about that. I was like, oh, that is normal. But that's weird. Like I'll just be sitting on the couch watching television. All of a sudden I'm like, because we have the air on, so I'm often freezing, and all of a sudden I'm like, God damn it. I'm like taking off the sweater or whatever. And I look up and it's somewhere between 8 and 8:30. It's very weird. And again, the stuff that I didn't know until I started talking to Amy, which is the stiffness. And you see the memes, like at this age, all you have to do is sneeze and you're, laid up for weeks with a back issue. I mean, and that's the thing. I was literally working on my computer, sitting in the bed, and I got up. I didn't even twist funny. I got up and I did something to my hip. And then the other night we were laying in bed And all of a sudden I go, God damn it. See, that's what I'm talking about. Darren goes, you didn't even move. I didn't even move and my hip hurt. So, I mean,
you probably just had a strong thought.
I did. It was very powerful. I'm a manifester. So I think that's the thing. It's the other symptoms that I wasn't expecting. And so I have been sort of floating along saying, I don't even know if I'm in menopause yet. Because again, TMI, but I have an IUD. So I haven't had a period since before I got pregnant with Charlotte. And since that is one of, if not the main thing that lets you know you have gone through menopause is not having a period, I have no clue. And so I've just been floating along like, I think I'm done. I don't know if I'm done, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, no, there are still things that are happening, symptoms. They're just not the well-known ones. So that's, I think, what I'm the most surprised by. And I guess going back to the listen to your body, as you were talking about that, was making me giggle a little bit. I already said, I don't know what my mom's menopause was like. I don't remember it being bad. I probably didn't live with her at the time, now that I'm thinking about it. She's only 21 years older than me, and I moved out when I was 18. So she might not even been going through it when I lived with her. But I have found myself, not only do I look like my mom the way I hobble around because I'm stiff all the time, but I don't eat very much. And because I am not hungry. And that is not the way I lived my life up until recent years, like the last 3, quite frankly.
I was going to say that's one of my surprises too, that I would be less hungry. Yeah.
I am just not that. I literally can have one big meal in the middle of the day and be fine. I'm not hungry. I'm not hangry. I literally am. That's enough. And I had heard that older people eat less because they're not as active, but I'm very active. So I don't know that that's the case. But I used to tease my mom about how little she ate. And she would say, I'm just not that hungry. She'd have like, a protein bar and a glass of milk for lunch and a salad for dinner. And because I grew up in a life where she was always dieting, I would get on her case and say, I just think you're still trying to keep weight off or leave, who the fuck cares? You're 60 some years old. I wasn't quite that mean, but that's what was going on in my head. And here I am, lo and behold, again, that is one of the reasons I think my mom is always with me going, I told you, you bitched about me, but I told you get this way.
And we've been together. We're smart. We'll eat. We're just not like thinking about it the way we probably used to.
I can leave food on the plate in a way I never used to leave food on a plate. And what's fascinating to me,
and it's not like, and you're not saying this is willpower. You're just saying I am not.
No, I actually, what's been weird to me, and I still get a little freaked by it, is I call it my Monty Python moment, where I take a bite and I'm like, if I eat one more bite, I think I might throw up. I literally feel this sort of sense of like, oh my God, I might one thin wafer.
One wafer thin mint. Bring me a bucket.
Exactly. And I think of that every time because I'm like, oh, I'm done. And sometimes there's only like 2 bites left on the plate, and sometimes it's enough to take home. But it doesn't. I have an actual feeling now when I have done eating, which I actually love.
So interesting.
My entire life.
I actually can't remember if Krista goes into this or not, but I am working with, I feel like I've gone to like every single person who can help me, like acupuncturist, doctor, naturopath, nutritionist. I'm, working with my hormones, like working with saddling this horse of hormones, this wild horse of my hormones. And that is one thing, like, I was like, I'm just not hungry. And she was like, I would love for you to try eating very small meals, at least a few, like 3 to 4 times a day, if you're not hungry. And here's why. And it was because like you are losing muscle, and I do want you to feed the muscle. And so, she's just having me try different things, and eating a little bit of protein within an hour waking up is so not what my body was wanting for so long. But now that I'm doing it in very small, it's like I am adjusting, and I am noticing. I'm noticing like I have more energy. So it is interesting. Like for anyone who is kind of playing, like, whether you're working with someone or not, not everybody is having appetite changes, but for people like you and I, it's worth trying different stuff to see what helps. Because metabolism just takes a dive when hormones leave the building. And
there are some days where I'm super hungry and I have 3 meals a day, so again, It goes back to listening to your body, so I don't freak out. Having grown up in diet culture, I don't freak out when I have a day where I eat 3 meals and a bunch of snacks, because I know there's going to be probably 4 or 5 days where I eat 1 meal, and it's all going to even out.
And here's where we want to remind everybody, we are not hosting this like experts. This is us having a conversation, and we are bringing you an expert.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
If this lands, great. If it doesn't, you got 3 weeks of experts coming up. So
what do you think, like your family, you sort of touched on this a little bit. What do you think your family, your kids, your husband understand about this change, knowing that you may or may not be going through it, but what do you think they understand or looking for that you didn't have any clue about when it was your mom going through it?
I mean, Darren is often watching television with me when I get the hot flash. So that's something he's aware of. I'm going to say, I can almost guarantee you Charlotte's not paying any attention, but hopefully I'll be around. Maybe not. I don't know, when she goes through it and I can help her, or I'll just have that conversation with her at some point, because she's going through puberty at the same time. Again, that's something we laughed about with Dr. Ross. God is definitely a man when he puts a pubescent child in with a menopausal woman, but so I don't know that she's paying. Yeah. I think, I don't know that I have a lot of emotional roller coaster any more than I always have. I mean, as a manifester, I have an emotional wave. So I definitely have days where I am just really angry and days when I'm fine. But I am pretty vocal about that. So I go in and say, this is a day I'm sad, I'm mad, just leave me alone. And they do. So I don't know that they are paying, because it's not as obvious. I think they're more aware because Amy's a good friend. So we hang out together a lot. So they know what Amy goes through. So I guess Charlotte's seeing that, but I'm so completely different. I'm the opposite end of the spectrum from her, that I don't think they're really paying attention to what I'm going through. What about you? Again, you have a doctor in the house, so.
Yeah, but he's a man. So, what I thought it would be, again, I think, like my mom had a hysterectomy kind of before it got really bad, but I do feel bad recalling that we were like, steer clear of her. There was like invisible cones around her a couple of times, and she would sort of speak to it like, like she was definitely on a roller coaster of emotions. It's not that she had never expressed them before. She was great and emotive and, spoke her mind, but this felt like something she couldn't control.
Yeah.
And it wasn't pleasant. And I feel like it wasn't pleasant for her. And it probably, being selfish teenagers wasn't really fun for us either, but I don't remember it being horrible. I really don't. And, but what I will say is something I've noticed and really only paid attention to when we kind of got in this line of work, right? When you really start to think about generations in my family of women who were just taught to be selfish, put everyone else first, be givers, be of service, all of that, where it works to a point, to get to like feel good about yourself by how you're showing up for others, until your body starts to go, dude, you've been putting this off for too long. If you don't make yourself your priority, your body will force you to. And that part I didn't see until, luckily, I was like in this line of work working with people. So it gave me some hints and some clues of how to shift like the way I was prioritizing myself and how to start taking time for myself. Because I think, like you said, that those invisible cones are really a thing. Like women do need a little time to themselves to really shift into this time of life so that they can enjoy it. And I think it's really awful for people who didn't take, like it's extra awful for them if there's no space and time for it. If they're just going, and their body's like, yeah, fuck you, then it's just harder, and then it feels more depleting, and it feels like failure when it's actually normal. And so I think that piece of it, like like looking ahead and seeing where women are so amazing until they become bitter. When you look closely and do the forensics, it's because they didn't stop to say, whoa, 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 whoa. You guys are all capable of doing more for yourselves. I'm going to do less. I'm going to take care of me, and we'll all enjoy each other better.
Yep. Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Hate that phrase.
I do
It
too.
felt right. All right. So as we said already, we're going to have some hilarious and some horrible come from Amy next week. But again, even she's able to shed some light on the good side and the good parts of the change. I feel like if we could fly in, maybe we can talk to our editor, Chris, if she could fly in like dum dum every time
I
we
know,
say
right?
the change, that'd be awesome. But let's talk about what is the upside to sort of let's leave this on a high note. So what do you think is some of the upsides to this part of life?
Finally living in a time, despite the fact that it's still so imbalanced in terms of the amount of research and resources, and the fact that I think we were sharing recently, like those books, oh God, I always forget the authors, because this is another thing that I didn't expect was just like, things that leaving the building. Like my brain has this knowledge. I could quote lyrics of songs I don't even like, but I can't tell you the author of these books I've read. The female brain and the male brain, right? And that research for so long wasn't done on the female brain because scientists who were men at the time were like, it's unreliable. Their cycles throw everything off. Yeah.
I mean, God damn hard.
And which is why the female brain needed to be studied as a different entity than the male brain, because they are different. Different parts are larger, different parts are smaller. There's reasons why men can only focus on one thing at a time. There's reasons why women can multitask. There's reasons why ADHD looks very different in those two different brains, all that stuff. So while I'm still pissed about that, I think we're living in a time that embraces, talks about, makes more normal the idea of mental health being as important as physical health. So, and I see that in the difference between my 22-year-old and my 17-year-old is that among my 17-year-old's peers, there's a lot of like, oh, I have a therapist or I have a coach, or there's a 100%. Lot. Whereas like with my oldest, like that was embarrassing for them to, if they were talking about stuff like that, that felt like something was a little bit, it isn't anymore, but it was back when they were like starting high school. It was not as part of the vernacular as it is now. Mental health being vital and important. And emotional health and slowing down and self-care is they're all buzzwords. They're out there right now. We hear about it a lot. But the good news is for people coming into this world now, they're less likely to live with people who are like, what the fuck's our problem? So, and work with people. There's a lot more, like just the fact that finally in a lot of places, some states are adopting what Europe's been doing for a while, which is making, period supplies free, because how ridiculous that someone should have to pay for it. We're living in a time where these things are a lot more commonly talked about, and hopefully folded in is the time and the reverence and the space to adjust. So I think that's partly what's good.
I agree with that. I feel like you're exactly right. I think we're at a place where menopause is no longer a dirty word or a thing to be ashamed of, as is not the period is not either. Like it's going to happen. And so let's like not hide because we are going through the change, or hide because we're having our period. Like, fuck all of that noise.
From a scientific point of view, I know it does feel like we're going through it. I'm not going to say we aren't, but I do remember an OB that Brendan worked with used to say, you don't go through menopause, you arrive there. And I don't really like that, but I get what they mean. Like, it's not something you go through. Like you get to a place, you start having periods, you're there. But I don't like to think that we're there. I just think it's like, okay, that's where my body is. And now I get to have fun in a different way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
What about you?
For me, it is kind of the whole reason we started this pod. I think one of the brilliant things about going through menopause is so estrogen leaving the building blows in a lot of ways. And again, you'll hear all about this from Dr. Ross, Krista, as Kari keeps calling her, around how you can help yourself around that. But the beauty of estrogen leaving the building is we do have less fucks to give. We do no longer feel so concerned with how other people see us. and that can be a shocking side effect of this. I mean, that can be something that throws a woman who has been a people pleaser, caring, attentive, puts herself on the back burner, eats the burnt toast, as the book was called way back in the day by Terry Hatcher. Is that right? Yeah, Terry Hatcher. It to be at this place where all of a sudden they no longer feel that way can be a shock to the system. And again, it's one of the beauties. It doesn't mean you don't care about other people. It just means you don't care what they think about you. Doesn't mean you're an asshole. It just means that how you dress, what you do, how you speak, how you eat, how you move, how you're taking care of yourself is nobody else's business but your own. And I think that is, I am here for all of that.
This is where we could put in applause.
Yeah.
I do.
I have a feeling this might be where I often hear, I think you do too, that people say they're talking back to the pod.
Yes, that's true.
So I have a feeling there'll be a lot of like, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Hells yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a perfect segue into the song.
Absolutely. So you picked the perfect song. If you're watching YouTube, I'm pointing. Would you like to do the lyrics, my friend?
I didn't pull them up. Shoot.
Oh,
I will say what the song is, and you tell me the favorite lyrics.
Well, you think I know like those off the top of my head?
I think Bowie lives in your head.
He does, but I don't know. Here's one thing that I found really interesting. Totally has nothing to do with the pod. I can sing along with the song and know every single word, but ask me to say it out of the top of my head.
Okay,
I absolutely can't.
I got it here. Okay, I love it. Okay, I just gotta say. Okay, so the song is, and we can't agree because of menopause brain whether or not we use this song already. Lisa doesn't think we have. I feel like we have, but we both love Bowie, and there is no better song for this than Changes. Okay, so still don't know what I was waiting for, and my time was running wild. A million dead end streets, and every time I thought I got it made, it seemed the taste was not so sweet. So I turned myself to face me, but I've never caught a glimpse how the others must see the faker. I'm much too fast to take that test. I love that. Changes, turn and face the strange. Don't want to be a richer man. Turn and face the strange. There's going to have to be a different man. Time may change me, but I can't trace time. I love it.
So good.
Okay. What I love about that, besides the fact that we could just intersperse men with women,
Totally,
or replace men with women. Again, like I watch the ripples change their size, but I never leave the stream of warm impermanence. And so the days float through my eyes. Okay, that should have been the lyrics. This is what I love. And we actually have an episode coming up about impermanence. I love this, that it is all about, like, you don't have to have had it all figured out. You don't have to have like a bunch of tidy endings to all your stories. You get to turn and face the next change and like bring forward what you want, what you learned, and really not live in the looking back and really not sweat what's coming. You just know that it's impermanent and it's coming. And I absolutely I've always gotten chills from this song because of that, because it gives me such permission to be like this is new. I may not have got even anything right yet or all of it right, but I've learned a ton, and this is where I am now. And I love that. Like there's such freedom in things not being permanent, even though there's a lot of sad parts of it. It makes room for the good parts of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We did it. We did the menopause pod.
We did it.
I survived. I'm still here.
And we have a few more for you to listen to. Enjoy. Amy, you will, if nothing else, you may possibly leave that going, wow, I don't have it too bad. And and she's so awesome to be able to share that for you. And I hope, and then we have, some really good information coming from Krista, who is an expert. Cause like we said, this is just us. This is just us talking about what we know. And I think it will reaffirm for our listeners, that, like this is a topical conversation, no matter where you are on the trajectory. I think talking about it, normalizing it is what we're all about. So we can't wait to hear what you have to say about it, what your experience is. And, what surprised you?
Yeah. So as usual, there'll be more content on all of our social media, and you can join our mailing list where we'll start to be sending out additional stuff as well. If you go to our website, thethingsweknowpodcast.com, you can sign up for our mailing list and give our top 10 ways to give less fucks. I know you all want that list. It's a good list. We're very proud of this list. So thethingsweknowpodcast.com, subscribe to our mailing list, and you will get that lovely sheet of 10 ways to give less of a fuck.
Also, if you're not already following the podcast, please do. Then you won't miss a single episode of all of our antics. And and we hope you'll like and follow it wherever you listen to podcasts. That really helps us. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We love reading those.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. The menopause pod I never wanted to have, but I'm so glad we did. So thank you for talking me into it.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye, everyone.